Welcome to yet another exciting and scintillating edition of Facing the Facts here on Daily TV. I am your host, Kingsley Sheteneu, and today we shall be dealing with something that everyone is familiar with, but no one seems to understand very well. We shall be talking about coronavirus. It is something that has inundated the media. It is something that is on everyone's doorstep. It is something we open our phones and we see. We see them everywhere we go. We have been locked down here in the UK, for example. In other countries, there are lockdowns that have been going on for weeks and months. I've seen images from different places. People are making preparations. There have been very controversial messages around it. There have been very different views, diverse views. The World Health Organization has given different versions of what can be done and what cannot be done to solve this problem. But in the midst of all this, the midst of all the noise and the hubble, there is the truth and there is the reality of what actually is COVID-19. So we are going to be talking today to three experts, to three people who are professionals and who are like experts in their own different fields. And these different fields will be covering the different aspects that we hope can give us a rounded view of what this virus is and how we can best handle it. So stay tuned with us. And as usual, you can send your questions. You can share this. You can follow us either on Facebook or on Twitter and on YouTube, where they are streaming live. And you can put your questions through. I will be taking questions from time to time. And if you have a question that is going to a specific guest, please do indicate that in the comments section. And we ask you to ask questions to clarify your doubts about what exactly this virus is and what exactly can be done to fight it. Today, we've got three guests whom I will bring on the screen. Each of them will introduce themselves and then we will get cracking. So the first will be Dr. Ajoke Israel Isiave. Welcome, Doctor.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me on your show. It's great to be here.
So, Doctor, can you tell our audience a bit about yourself?
Okay, thank you. So like you rightly said, my name is Dr. Ajoke Israel Isiave. I am a medical doctor and I practice in the United Kingdom as a general practitioner. I'm married to my lovely, wonderful, dear husband, who is a pastor of a global movement, and we pastor the church together as well. And we are blessed with two lovely boys.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I mean, okay, so you've got a religious background too, which that's great. And next we have Apostle TJ Aregbesola, Shola. Sorry, I always call it like Cameroonian, but the Yoruba will call it Shola. So we welcome Apostle. Apostle, welcome to Daily TV.
Thank you very much. Truly an honor to be here and to be part of what you guys are doing, I believe globally, and thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Dr. Apostle, can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, well, by God's grace, I'm a lover of Christ, the servant, and I serve and lead a movement known as Network Edification. It's an alliance of leaders and churches here in the United Kingdom. And our call really is to shift the church into the reality of its dominion mandate and to empower the church to operate beyond the traditional context of what's been known as the four walls, to become influencers of culture. So that's what we're really about. I'm married to my amazing wife, who's a co-laborer in life and ministry. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's an amazing introduction. And we have Prince Ekoso. Welcome to Facing the Facts on Daily TV, Prince.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm grateful to be here. My name is Prince Michael Ngwese Ekoso. I am a religious leader, or let me say a Christian leader. At the same time, a political figure in Cameroon. God called me to mitigate between spirituality and politics. and I was supposed to run for presidential elections in Cameroon in 2018, but due to certain reasons, I could not do that, but I am still working on that. I run a political party called the United Socialist Democratic Party. I am also the president of board of directors for Global Trade International Investment. I am also the CEO, at the same time, the CEO of Christliner Services International, a business organization that seeks to be able to empower God's people in order for us to be able to carry out the kingdom mandate with a lot of integrity and respect, because I believe strongly that in order for us to be able to continue to preach the gospel, we must be able to arm ourselves both politically, socially, financially, and so on. For now, I will end at that. My family life is sacred to me. As a political leader, I don't always want to talk about my family because we live in a context where people are not very, very sure of who they are, and so they feel intimidated when you start becoming a threat to them. So I keep my family away from my political and public life.
Okay, thank you very much. That's quite understandable. So we will go straight into the nitty-gritty of what we are here today, and we'll be starting with Dr. Israel Isiave. Doctor, so can you just tell us briefly what exactly is coronavirus COVID-19 or COVID-19?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very valid question because we live in a day and age where you go on the internet and there is so much information that you feast your eyes on. Many are true, many are false. And so there's so much conflicting information on the internet at the moment. So I think it's very important. It's a very, very valid question. And I think it's very important that we know exactly what we're dealing with. So actually stands for Corona 2019. So the 19 at the end represents 2019, which is the year this virus, this particular strain of the coronavirus was first discovered. We may or may not know that it was first discovered in Wuhan, China. Now, coronavirus itself is a very broad term. It encompasses a group of viruses that cause respiratory symptoms. So the things that will affect the lungs and the way people breathe. So that's the broad context. So we're dealing with a very specific virus that comes from the family of the broad coronavirus. And so we have the strain Corona COVID-19. That's the summary.
Amazing. I don't know if Apostle or Prince Ekoso, you have a contrary view of what coronavirus is, COVID-19 is, from what the doctor has just presented.
Basically, I think the doctor has given the basic definition of what coronavirus is all about. And the one thing I want to try and specify is that coronavirus is a new type of virus which actually escaped some of the intelligence of experts. Like I think Dr. can actually agree to that fact. Since the virus is new, to handle it actually is not very easy. To be able to find its cure is not easy. So that's why you see there's a lot of controversies and you see people dying left and right without a proper accountability to how and why, when we are going to find the treatment. So that's one aspect I want to mention about the coronavirus, that it's a new virus, its characteristics is very, very strange. And so that's why it becomes a little bit complex.
Yeah, Apostle, I don't know. Do you have any contrary opinion to that?
No, we as believers, I think it's very much proper to respect the knowledge of experts in the field. I believe that even though I'm sure we'll get into dialogue regarding the place of faith and spirituality in all of this, I think the basic humility that every Christian leader must have and every believer must have is to respect the opinion of people who God has gifted in a certain area before we now begin to talk about other dynamics of faith. So I'm very much in agreement, and so I'm so happy to hear the perspective of Dr. and Prince in so wonderfully summarizing the subject.
Yeah, well, and I think that's great that you mentioned that, because I think there's something Prince Kosso is probably contradicting Doctor, because she is basically saying it's new, but from Doctor's view, this is not really new. It's just a different strain of an existing virus. And let me just point out that we had a movie in 2011, Contagious, that mentions a virus similar to this. In 2014, there was another movie that mentioned this and specifically called it the coronavirus. So, Doctor, what do you say about that?
Okay, so yes, like I said, there's a lot of information going on around, and it's very important that we speak and try and find out factual information. There are many websites you can get factual information from. For example, the World Health Organization can give you quite authentic information. So like I said previously, the coronavirus is a group of viruses, okay, and it presents with different types of strains of viruses. For example, even the common cold comes under the broad topic or the broad heading of the coronavirus, where you have the rhinoviruses and all that. Now, I agree with Prince Ekoso in that COVID-19, which comes under the coronavirus, is a novel virus, which means it's the new type of virus. So in that regard, COVID-19 is a new virus, but coronavirus is a group of viruses, and COVID-19 comes under it. I hope that clarifies a bit.
That is, even to me, that is a very huge clarification, because I use COVID-19 and coronavirus interchangeably so much that I just thought, okay, COVID-19 was the short form of coronavirus. So I think my audience out there would have also learned that distinction. And thank you, Prince Apostle and Apostle, for that clarification and for that input. So, I mean, Doctor just gave us an idea of how do people become symptomatic. I mean, we saw the video of Idris Elba. I think you saw that. He said he had exhibited no symptoms, but he tested positive. We had the case of the Prime Minister, who said he had mild symptoms. And we had a case of a woman who was attended to by paramedics, and they said she was fine, and they left, and then she died. So, I mean, these are confusing things for us. And I got a question today. Someone was asking me how I've got this. Have I got? And I didn't really know how to answer. So how does someone know? And what do they do with the information they get?
Okay. So in your question, I could pick up about two questions within your question. Now, you did mention, Idris Elba having the virus, our dear Prime Minister, who we're praying for, who does have mild symptoms and has been confirmed to be positive. And we have those who have sadly passed away. Some of them did have symptoms, and some of them passed away quite suddenly. Now, about 80% of those who have the COVID-19 will actually, be fine. And about 1 in 6 may end up, having very severe complications from this virus. So some people actually have no symptoms at all. So, we mentioned things like the fevers, the coughs, the aches and pains. There are people walking on the streets right now who are asymptomatic, which is why I agree with the government's strict policy of social distancing, because you don't have to wait till you have symptoms before you can pass it on. In fact, you can be totally fine and be a carrier and pass it on to the vulnerable, those who are elderly, those who have other medical problems like diabetes, asthma, COPD, the whole works, and pregnant women. So that's why we need to protect. We need to be there for each other, even though we may feel fine in ourselves. So that's the first group of people. Then you have the second group of people who would have mild symptoms. The mild symptoms they may present with will be simple things like what you would have when you have a maybe like the common cold, or some people may have coughs, they may have fevers, aches and pains, headaches, things that you can manage at home with paracetamol to bring the temperature down, okay? And obviously self-isolating for 7 days. When you do have those symptoms, those within your house should self-isolate for 14 days. And this is because of what we call the incubation period of, getting the disease and it manifesting. I don't want to bore you with the details. And then you have the last group of people who I believe are the ones who really need to seek medical help. And these are the ones who are not presenting with mild symptoms, but are very unwell, having difficulty breathing, and the works. And these ones usually end up in hospital and getting tested, and then they can get the confirmation that they have it or they don't have the COVID-19.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. I will come to you next, Apostle. I have seen some versions. I was thinking to play what I heard from another apostle in Nigeria in the form of a prophecy. It's quite long, it's about 8 minutes. So I will just summarize. Yes, Apostle Suleiman specifically said this was like some sort of international conspiracy that had to do with vaccines, and was advising people against even taking vaccines and things like that, and quoting scriptures and linking it to the presidency of Trump and to the Pope. It was a lot of convoluted, a lot of information. But what I could draw from it was basically, he was telling people, this is not what we think, it is something else. And what he said basically contradicts what we've just heard today. So what do you say as a fellow apostle?
It would have been amazing to see the full context and the content.
Okay, if that is the case, I think it would be great to actually, I would just play that so that because it's important we listen to what he said.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because we don't want to take anything out of context.
Yes.
Amen. I wrote something down and I told us I was going to read it out. And as I prayed, there are some things I will say that may be coded, but I wrote it and I need us, I'll stop at the point where I should stop. And then pray. The Lord said, I give this word to man. I don't do anything in the affairs of the world until man invites me with understanding in the place of prayer. The nation has sinned greatly against the Lord. They wanted to make their own moon shine brighter than the natural moon. Their power tussle is between a particular nation. They want to bring that nation under their feet. COVID-19 is an experiment. And now they are rejoicing that they could keep the world. And they would wait for another 2 years. In 2022, if I tarry to come, something worse will happen, and it will also be delayed from them. The world leaders are coming together with a synergy that will make all religions have a common ground. And the Pope is part of it. America is their target, but the president is their obstacle. America should not joke with the next election, because they always support the opponent of the current president. Before I go for the next, the Lord gave me a prophecy last year or so, or 2 years ago, that Trump will not be elected. And I the Lord tells us is to intercede. We should pray and change that. We should pray and change it. Because if that happens, then the world is finished. If that happens, that the current president of America doesn't come back, the world is finished. But I saw that, and God told me we should pray no changes. Because they will all support this opponent. The opponent is not the issue, but his running mate is. The running mate is a lady, and if the opponent wins, the opponent will be impeached for the lady to take over and fulfill the new world order. Their current agenda is to humiliate him. They have succeeded in making him mockery in America, while they are now free from it. But the prayers of the saint will reverse it, and America will be healed. The virus was manufactured by these people. It is not a biological issue, it's a chemical weapon. Many people contacted it through testing. Once you go for the test, you are infected. The few that are not positive is to balance the equation, to make people believe it is real. The vaccine will come.
I just want to stop at that point about first before we continue, because he did say that, and that was what was worrying for me. Saying people who go to get tested, that is where they get infected. Basically, is I thought, okay, so when someone in Nigeria, in Cameroon, hears this, and I've seen a video of children in one school where there was something, I don't know what it was, maybe some itches on their body, and someone was applying palm oil, and it seems we lost Prince. Let me get him back. And when the person posted that video, they said, oh, this is the people who were administered with the coronavirus vaccine. I do know there's no vaccine as yet for the COVID-19. I don't know if there is for other strands of the coronavirus. But the important thing for me today, I wanted you to clarify was, is it okay that we are getting this from a pulpit and speaking to an audience of people who adore God and who are going to take this word very strongly, that the testing of people with coronavirus is how people actually get infected?
I think that we are in a very interesting period, and I'm sure we'll be able to elaborate so much more. I think that prophecy, revelation must be stewarded with a lot of accountability. And I said something at the beginning that I feel that the humility of every leader is to be able to acknowledge the place and the wisdom that God has given people in the medical field. I think that if a minister does not have medical expertise, there's a level of delivery that I feel that is important. We can counsel on a spiritual level. We can give prophetic perspective. Now, what I would say is that there is a spiritual angle to all of this. I definitely believe that the realm of the spirit is not disconnected from what is happening naturally. And in the ideal of God, in the system of God, there's what we've now defined as sacred and secular. That's apart, shouldn't be apart, because heaven and earth were created to be in rhythm. But having said that, what I would say is that with regards to your question specifically, I do believe that it's imperative that ministers give counsel that are quite backed by fact. So, for example, we have Christian doctors, we have Christian professionals who, if I'm sure that they're able to carry out tests, they're able to verify some of these things that are being said. So, for example, I know we have Dr. Ajoke here, and Dr. Ajoke, for example, who I know personally, wouldn't, in the process of testing someone, pass on a virus to them in that sense. So this is the issue for me. That for me to give that level of counsel, I would personally want to not just approach it from the basis of revelation, but I would want to prove by practice and by experience that it is so. And again, what I would say is that as ministers, we can give revelation, but ultimately what the people do, we have to be very careful as to what we ask, what we say to them. Hopefully I've been able to answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that. Prince Okosto, let me just come to you. You are also a minister of the gospel, and you just heard what Apostle Suleiman said. What's your take without, and considering that we already had expert opinion backed by, supported by you both? What do you think about that prophecy, or what that presentation?
Thank you very much, Kingsley, and thank Dr. Ajoke and Apostle for their contribution so far. And with regards to the message of Apostle Suleiman, there are a number of things that from time to time baffles me. Some from the pulpit. I don't want to any bunch of controversies that comes from pulpit, and it leads to more confusion, because at one point in time we are not sure of what someone like Dr. who is a minister of God and who is also a scientist and an expert in the medical field, what she brings out from her findings and her studies. And if we continue to over spiritualize everything, we may finally create a situation where someone like Dr. Ajoke is more confused for why she became a doctor. You know, there's no doubt that from every indication that the virus is a fabrication from the lab. I basically have no doubt about that. But at the same time, we must understand that even though the virus is a creation, it's a human creation, but there are methods by which we can be able to curb the problem, or even solve it, or even actually a situation where we can be able to annihilate from the virus a scientific perspective. And so this over spiritualizing everything about the happenings of the world will lead the church into a position where the church has no power at all, because there is, like I earlier mentioned, when someone says that people not receive vaccines, and at the same time people dying of that should have been by vaccines, and then at the same time people say that this coronavirus is going to be completely wiped away by the 27th of March, and 27th of March is already passed. And those are all things people, if you read social media comments right now, there's a lot of debate about one other man of God whom virus will be completely wiped out by the 27th of March. And these are some of the things that actually baffles me, and it brings me to a position where I begin to question the validity or the spiritual stance of certain declarations. And without maybe trying to doubt the calling of whosoever, but I think that there is need for people to be able to really understand why God created medicine, because I believe that God created the medical field. If God didn't create the medical field, then it means that somebody like Dr. Ajoke, she's lost. She's lost. But I don't think that is the case. So when we are trying to be able to solve the problems of the world, we must take into consideration the intelligence that God has given to experts who are actually expert in a particular domain, and respect them in that domain. And when they are males, we should not come and try to overpower them or try to contradict them by authority in spirituality. You see, so I have doubts, some of those declarations coming from the pulpit. I think that the church needs to sit up, you know, because if the church doesn't sit up, we will find ourselves in situations where we are unable to solve practical which are in front of us, and we'll be relying so much on prophecy that there is any prophecy which is above the prophecy that Jesus Christ mentioned in the book of Matthew chapter 24. He highlights on the happenings of the end of the time. And again, I want to mention that if actually from Apostle Suleiman's declarations that in 2022, if Jesus tarries by 2022, a lot of things are going to go wrong, that people will believe that in 2022 Jesus Christ will come, and nobody is going to come. Himself said that is going to come except the Father. People need to make certain declarations. We should be very, very careful because God is not a respecter.
Thank you so much for that wonderful delivery. Yes, I just see that we are all in agreement on one thing. Coronavirus is real, it's there, and it affects people. So I would just want us to move on to ways of preventing it and all that. And we've got Apostle and our doctor who are both from Nigeria, and Prince who is from Cameroon. And these are two countries that are very close to my heart. So I would want to ask us, we've heard experts in the UK, we've heard experts in the US, we've seen how people dealt with it in China through lockdowns of whole cities, and how China has really slowed down the rates of death through their strategies. And we've seen how Italy is struggling and Spain is struggling. I was looking at the numbers today from the United States. They are alarming. They are rising astronomically. We've seen all of that. But in the heart of all this, we've seen African nations, specifically Nigeria and Cameroon, basically regurgitating the same measures that are being distilled in the West. The Cameroon Minister for Health, for example, tweeted and said, "Oh, I am advising social distancing." And I responded on Twitter, I said, "That's a good word, but what does it mean in the context of Cameroon, in the Marché Mokolo or Marché Congo in Douala? You know that. And what does it mean in the context of Nigeria? What does social distancing mean?" Let me come to you first of all, Dr. Ajoke. I don't know when last you were in Nigeria, but I can tell you we don't have as many supermarkets, so there are no Tesco's, Asda's, and those where people can go and line up. We've got these general markets where people go. So what does social distancing mean, and what would a lockdown of a city like Lagos, a city of over 16 million or 20 million, or whatever millions we can think about? I mean, Lagos alone is like Italy. What does it really mean for the ordinary Nigerian?
Okay. So I think for us to know what that really means, we need to understand how this virus actually spread. Okay, so this virus is spread by respiratory droplets. So if somebody sneezes, if somebody with the virus sneezes or coughs, and you inhale that, if you're close to the person, so the recommendation is about staying about 1 to 2 meters away from people in an ideal situation. So I'm trying to avoid close contacts. Okay, so if you're in close proximity with someone who is a carrier of this virus, whether or not they have symptoms is irrelevant at this point. When we get ourselves in social situations, we tend to pick up these things because people are breathing in and breathing out. So we're basically inhaling the viruses that have been exhaled through people coughing, through people sneezing. And even when people sneeze and they touch surfaces, door handles, toilet doors, it's the ways are just quite many, obviously through contact. And so when the government gives us an advice of whatever country you're in, the country itself is not really the main issue, because it's the same virus in whatever country you're in. Is the COVID-19 in the same COVID-19 in China, is the same COVID-19 in Nigeria. So I think the measures that are being put in place in countries should be the same. Social distancing, washing your hands, having the ways of sneezing and coughing, using a tissue, not using your hand, even if you don't have any tissues or handkerchiefs, use your elbow. There's so many things. And I think the rules that apply in one country, the broad rules, I would say, should be the same all across because it's the same virus.
Apostle, let me just come to you so that we deal with Nigeria. Apostle, do you think that it's possible for people in Nigeria to actually, I mean, I know I lived in Nigeria for 7 years and I know some people cannot afford soap. So when you tell them to wash their hands, what does that mean to the ordinary Nigerian? And I know there are many.
The powerful thing is that we're people of innovation. I received a WhatsApp video about a system by which this is not about washing hands, by the way, but about a system by which you kind of medicate, where you put aboniki in hot water and you cover yourself. Basically, so we're people of innovation, and I understand that. But I do think to address the Nigerian context, I would say that I think the major difficulties would be our social life. That's going to be the major difficulty. I think that we and a major aspect of our spiritual and social life is fused into one in the context of, for example, church and religion. You know, we can't talk about things like celebrations and parties. And I think a major issue that we would face is dealing with lawlessness. It is at times like this that lawlessness can really, really show. Will people heed the government advice? You know, will churches heed to government advice? I mean, we're beginning to see that. So I feel as though that in terms of things like washing your hands, all of those things, we have ways that we can make sure that those things are done. I believe that decently people will be able to afford soap and things like that. But my concern more so is to do with the social element. Can we cope socially? Can we isolate? Can we stay in the house? Can we heed to medical advice, basically, without having other advices that are so-called spiritual, but then they negate? So my concern is not on some of those things. My concern is more on the social element and being able to
Okay, thank you so much, Apostle, and I really do appreciate you really bringing that to context. Prince Ekoso, you are a politician in Cameroon as well as leader in many domains, and you will be no stranger to the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions. So what would social distancing or some of the measures being advocated mean for people in that conflict region?
Yeah, thank you once again. Let me try to be very, very precise in your question. For example, we are talking about social distancing, which is one of the procedures which is internationally accepted as one of the ways to avoid infected by the coronavirus. Now, within the context of Cameroon, or let me say in Africa, but let me limit myself in Cameroon. Okay, you see, first of all, I want to be very categorical. It really is not going to be easy because since the government of Cameroon came up with about 13 guidelines to be able to announce to Cameroonians to apply in order to not to be infected. I have gone around, especially here in Yaoundé, where I live. It's practically impossible to really follow that. It's true that people are trying to follow because of the wave at which the disease is ravaging over there overseas and basically here in Cameroon. Because we understand from the announcement that the Minister of Public Health tweeted recently, stipulates that about 99 people have been affected in Cameroon, but some other skeptics say that it is above that number. And we already have about 3 or 4 deaths already in Cameroon. And the towns which are majorly affected are Yaoundé and Douala. And in terms of population, those 2 towns are very, they are densely populated. Now, look at it from the social perspective. when you look at Cameroon from the social perspective, we begin to find it difficult to really apply the social distancing as a policy to be able to prevent people from being affected. And actually, from the way things are going, if care is not taken, Cameroon, or the population of Cameroon, is going to be highly affected by the virus, because the announcement that the Minister of Health or Public Health provides from time to time, we discover that he may announce today that, okay, 99 people have been affected so far, and in the next, maybe tomorrow, you will discover that it will be about 95, 105 or 110 or 115 thereabout. So the rapidity of the spread is very, very alarming in my judgment. And then at the same time, we must understand that socially, Cameroonians are people who are more relieved when they are together, because of many, many different troubles. People want to be together in order to actually get some relief. But now, when you look at it from the social perspective, is a little bit very difficult. Now, look at it from the economic perspective. The economic life of Cameroonians, Cameroonians live from hand to mouth, basically. And so people always want to go out every day to go and fend for themselves, to be able to get something to eat, like the bike riders and people who sell in the market. You mentioned about Marché Mokolo or maybe Marché Mbopi in Douala. Now, how do you apply social distancing in that context? It's a little bit very challenging. And that is why it is important, like I had already mentioned or suggested to the government of Cameroon, that they should look into the context of Cameroon and provide ready solutions. It's not every solution that comes from the international community which can actually fit within the context of Africa, and particularly in our country, Cameroon. Yeah. So because like you mentioned, in Cameroon or in Africa, or particularly in Cameroon, they are not supermarkets that somebody can wait for a while, somebody else pays his or her bill before leaving the stage, before you go and pay, all of that. You have this Mokolo market, you have Marché Mbopi, where people just flock into the market. People are picking things from the floor, people are picking things from the shelves and all of that. People are talking at each other, people are pushing each other to find their way to move into the market. Social distancing becomes a problem in that context. So that is why I believe that when it comes to that aspect of social distancing, we must look at the particular solution of can help the people to activities within the period where they are going to be carry out their activities during the day, without actually without making them to feel like, okay, they cannot carry out their activities. So in my view, social distancing becomes a great challenge in the context of Cameroon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prince Kosso. And well, I mean that it also brings me to another question. I mean, again, because we are African and we have an audience that is based largely in Africa, and Africans, people talking back home. We've seen videos again, similarly, some from Cameroon, some from Southern Africa. And I got a call from someone in Nigeria who was saying, well, this thing, I don't think it's real. Maybe it's still, I mean, the myths are still there that it doesn't affect Black people, it doesn't affect Africans. Governments are making these numbers up so that they can get money from the international community. But I just want to, without being so pessimistic, to give some credit to the Lagos state government, because I've seen some videos of a stadium being transformed into some sort of a center that is really proactive. So something is being done in that measure. But I'm coming back to you, Doctor. What do you say to people, particularly who are basically saying this is not real, this is not happening, and we can party, we can still get together and do stuff, and we are not affected. We Africans are not prone to catch this virus.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to use a scripture for this answer because the Bible says that wisdom is the principal thing. I think in everything that we do, wisdom has to be our foundation. Wisdom has to be the bottom line. And without wisdom, you would perish. Without wisdom, people die. Without wisdom, you cannot survive without wisdom. Now, people are going based on what they have read on social media. People are not doing their research by themselves. They are not going to medically authenticated sites to get information. People are getting information from the streets, from Facebook, from Twitter, from magazines, things that are not authentic. I think the very important thing for us to note is that this is real and people are dying from this virus. People are dying. It's a pandemic. It's a worldwide thing. Now, people may feel like it's not affecting them and no one is immune to this. Anyone can get it. Obviously, we pray we wouldn't. That's why we have to take the measures. So what I would recommend and advise for those who are in Africa, like you have mentioned some countries who feel that they can carry on partying and doing the things that they are doing. Now, whether you believe it exists or not, there are people who are currently dying as a result of this pandemic, as a result of this disease. And so even if not for yourself, what about for your brother? What about for your sister? What about for your children? What about for your parents? So think about other people. This disease is real and it's killing people. So if your government recommends social distancing, which is what they're recommending, please, please, please stick to the program. Wash your hands, do the things that we are asking you to do. Let us nip this thing. I was going to say nip it in the bud. It's already spread around anyway. So whatever we can do to help flatten the curve, to bring this thing to a stop, let us do. And if you don't know anything about it, don't spread any rumors. Don't forward messages that don't have any scientific facts. That don't just join the bandwagon. Let us be disciplined in what we send. Let us be disciplined in what we read, and God will help us in Jesus' name.
Amen. Apostle, I'm just coming to you now. Just following on from what our doctor has just said. I mean, we already have it. It's already there, and the figures, obviously, rightly, people are correct to say that the figures that the official figures are not correct, and that is true because every government, I think I read the UK government's updates every day, and they clearly state that these are only for those who have been tested. So they are correct to say it's not the actual figures. So could it be that the situation of low numbers in African countries is as a result of low levels of testing? Could we be talking of this situation when perhaps we already have a very widespread number of people, a large number of people already suffering with the virus?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things that's being tested right now is our not just not just general issues that Africa face, but what's being tested right now is the types of infrastructure that we have. And make no mistakes about it, as we've been enlightened, sometimes there are mild symptoms that people don't even, or some people will have it and they're not showing any symptoms at all. So we're in a very, very interesting place in Africa right now. We just got to really, really pray that God will see us through. Unfortunately, and this is not being negative, we don't have the facilities currently active to be able to even discern how many people have it or not. But I believe that definitely it's operative, it's active. And obviously in Nigeria last week, from around last week, I think some prominent people started to come out that they already had the virus. So you want to think about people who are vulnerable and don't know. We have a lot of elderly people in Nigeria as well. And so, yeah, definitely, if testing was done, I believe that you'll find so many more people with it. But of course, we're not praying that. But I just wanted to also add to what Dr. Ajoke said, because I didn't want to interrupt with that. I think that it's so important that we're not ignorant. Satan's chief Satan's chief thing is to make sure that people live in darkness and that they're ignorant of the truth. And faith doesn't negate fact, right? If we're ever going to be, and I'm speaking because I know our African people, I know our fellow believers, and I believe in faith. I believe in the power of Christ, the supernatural ability. I believe in all of that. But I feel that if we're going to ever be able to deal with something, even from a spiritual viewpoint, we need to be able to diagnose correctly what is going on, and we have to participate with the right measures. The Bible says, watch and pray, not just pray alone. So we need to be observant, we need to be aware, we need to be intelligent, and then through that, by the Spirit of God, we take measures that are conducive for us dealing with. So I just thought I would add to what Dr. Ajoke said, because I know Africa is spiritual. African people believe that, because they pray, they won't catch it. Of course, we believe that as well, but also we have to cooperate with the right measures, and we steward that correctly. By God's grace, we see it needed.
Yeah, thank you. And Prince Kosso, yes, I did ask, someone has just reminded me that you did not clarify what you thought about those in the conflict regions, in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, who are currently facing conflict. I mean, they've already been experiencing a lot of lockdowns for a very long time. And with this virus, what do you think it would mean for people in a conflict area where humanitarian assistance has not been reaching them in a not normal circumstance? And just to add, what would you say about the call by the United Nations Secretary General for all arms conflicts to put a pause to fighting, to allow the world deal with COVID-19?
Thank you once again, Kingsley. Today I was invited for a TV talk in one of the TV rooms, and I was asked about what was my message to in the southwest and the northwest, especially with the outbreak. And I mentioned very simple statements. I have always known that anytime that we spill blood, we don't go away easily with that, because life is in the blood, from what the Bible says, and anybody who spill blood, the person may not just go anyhow or just go freely. And I called on the military to exercise a lot of from their consistency. The Amber Boys actually weapons. As a matter of fact, I called for ceasefire because there is just no way that humanitarian organizations can go down into those very tense environments to be able to sensitize. I myself, I have the will to be able to go down in all of those areas to sensitize the people on the gravity of the coronavirus. But the point is that going into those conflict zones probably is not a good idea for me at this point in time, because even if nobody aims at you, maybe a stray bullet is going to take you down. So those are some of the things that I have been mentioning to the people and to the government, that this coronavirus gives us an opportunity to be able to actually bring down the solution to the conflict in the northwest and the southwest, because it's over getting to 4 years now that this conflict has been going on, and more than 4,000 people have been killed. And the coronavirus comes in now to imagine that someone is affected in those areas where there are no facilities, health facilities, because most of the health facilities and health centers in those areas have been completely destroyed, and the health personnel have fled away. So imagine that someone is affected or infected by the coronavirus in some of those areas. It is going to be very, very disastrous. So there is need for the government to take advantage of this situation of the coronavirus and to actually call for a unilateral ceasefire. I have always mentioned that the president of Cameroon, Mr. Paul Biya, should be able to call for a unilateral ceasefire, so that at this point in time, health officials and experts who actually will be able to look at the situation with the coronavirus can go down and not only sensitize the people, but do tests and also provide treatment for those who are carriers. So that is what I can say at this point in time. There is just no way that we can keep killing ourselves and we think that we are going to solve the problem. So like I mentioned, life is in the blood, and when you kill people and you keep shedding blood, situations will happen, continue to destabilize the environment, because I'm not sure that God is happy with what is happening in the southwest and the northwest, and it is a high time for us to be able to say, okay, it is enough. Let us actually stop the killing, because right now there is a new enemy, which is the coronavirus. So now I believe that it is important for both the AMBA and the military to say, okay, we have a stronger enemy now, which is the coronavirus. So can we join our forces together to fight against the coronavirus? Because in international relations, when state A, state B, and state C are operating, and state C is one of the most powerful states and declare war against state B, state B and state A and state B are fighting, and state C, which is a more powerful state, declares war now on state B. State B can go and sign an alignment with state A. You say, okay, you see, there is a greater enemy now, a greater force who has the power to kill you and myself. So let us join our forces together so that we can face state C. And if we win state C, then we can now come and sit down and discuss on whether we continue to fight or we can be able to stop the fighting. So I think right now it is important that both Southern Cameroonians and the government of Cameroon should be able to look at ways that this problem can be solved permanently as a result of the presence of coronavirus that can hit anyone, anywhere, and at any time.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I really hope they are listening. I know that a lot of the Amazonian leaders, they do follow us, and you coming here today, I'm sure that some members of the government would have been sneaking around to listen to what you're going to say. So I hope they take that advice, because coronavirus really now is a common enemy which they should unite to fight. And really, we hope that they will listen, and we continue to ask Dr. Ajoke and Apostle, I don't know how familiar you are with the conflict. We ask you to put Cameroon in prayers, because the country is undergoing the most trying moments of his very short history. So I am going to look at, there is a comment from Delisinger. She's talking about a lot of concerns from social media. I was coming to that, but I've just seen she's brought it up and someone has about why no religious minister saw a calamity of such magnitude. Was there a spiritual sleep in the church? Yes, because we know COVID-19 started in 2019. I mean, China announced it in December. But I don't know, maybe I missed it. Was there any prophecy that really pointed the world to pray against such a calamity of this magnitude? I'll start with you, Dr. Ajoke.
Okay, thank you very much. I personally happen to live with the person I'm married to. My husband happens to be a prophet, and he had mentioned a worldwide calamity some years back. He never mentioned the virus. He never said it was going to be a virus, but in terms of the effects it was going to have on the economy, on nations, these things. And there are other pastors and prophets too who have been sounding an alarm for some time now. we may not have had the full picture in terms of this is going to be a virus, but I think the general picture had been around for some time. Now, in terms of why we as the church may not have really known, I think sometimes we tend to have itchy ears. We filter what we want to hear, and we receive what we want to receive, and we filter what the pastors, the prophets are saying through our own lenses. So in general, I think, well, personally, my husband had prophesied this previously, and he's got posts on Facebook from as far back as 2014 that he brought back up recently when this whole thing started. And I'm not saying this to point fingers to raise up any man, but I'm saying that there had been warnings through specific prophets / men of God about this, the general idea. Now, it wasn't so widespread, and the question is, sometimes God reveals in parts, and when he wants to show that he is God, we as men have no answers. We can't always have answers. We can't always have, that's the beautiful thing about God. The moment we all as human beings, as pastors, as leaders, as prophets, as apostles, the moment we have all the answers, it means that we are taking the place of God. So I love the mystery of God in that regard, because there are certain things that he reveals to us in parts, and we have different parts, different bodies, different pastors, apostles, evangelists, and we see in parts and we prophesy in parts. And when we bring this full picture together, when we bring our different pictures together, then we'll have a clearer picture. But I think in general, some people had prophesied about this if we were ready and ready to listen, and not, worried about the prosperities and the other things that don't really matter, the little bits and bobs, the arguments and the bickerings that happen in church. If we had paid close attention, we would have heard that this warning had gone out previously.
Thank you so much. Apostle, I see Beatrice Arebe-Shola is also supporting what Deli Singer just asked, and I'm coming to you. I don't know if there's a relation because of the name, but okay, well, so I'm coming to you. I mean, do you agree with Doctor that the church seems to have been too busy listening to different things that we could not nail this down, and the Christendom really failed to step up when the world really needed it?
Okay, the question I want to ask is, how much time do you have?
I mean, again, we normally are very flexible. We wanted this to be an hour and 30 minutes maximum, so we've got 38 minutes.
No, that's a joke. That's a joke. I'll try and be honorary, because of course I know everyone has wisdom that they want to share. But I'm going to take quite a controversial perspective on this. I've kept my cool so far. I'm seeing this question. I've seen people raise this particular question about how come nobody gave a prophetic word? How come nobody saw it? I particularly feel that when it comes to prophecy, the people of God, sometimes they have an unholy entitlement about the voice of God. Yes, the word says, "My sheep hear my voice, the voice of a stranger they will not follow." That's true, but it's not just a right that we get to hear God; it's a privilege that we get to hear Him. And my question is, through the years, there are so many things that have happened that the Lord has revealed ahead of time, that the Lord has spoken of ahead of time, that has been that His prophets have revealed. But my question is, what has the response been? That is the question. What has the response been? Because when we say this, we have to ask ourselves as a people, whether on a national level, depending on what country you're from, and even on a personal level, the way that we live our lives and our responsiveness to the words that God is giving to us over the years, has it been absolute? I'll quote a scripture to this effect in Matthew 12:42. Matthew 12:42. The word says that the queen of the south will rise at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to listen to wisdom. Now something greater than Solomon is here. Now I say that to say that our problem is not just more prophecy. Our problem is more spiritual. Now, that's one angle, but I'm also going to agree with Dr. Ajaka on this. In the sense that I believe the word is we see in part, we know in part, we prophesy in part. I believe that over the years, God has revealed in portions to different people, different elements, and different angles of what is coming. In fact, sometimes what determines the perspective of revelation that you steward sometimes is the office that you're called into, and you mostly tend to deliver and operate from that angle. So I believe that in different portions, God has given people revelation over this, but I believe that the problem has been attentiveness over the years, and the problem has been responsiveness. Now, I'm going to say this. I know this is not directly the question, but I'm going to add this to it. What I really believe is that in the sovereignty of God, for God to allow something that will shake the entire systems of the earth, including the church, it shows us that at this point we're threading a very thin line spiritually, where we need to be awake, we need to be alert, we need to be aware. If God will allow every system to be shaken, entertainment, media, sports, politics, business, everything is shaken, and then the most powerful tool that God has for world transformation and reformation, the church has to remodel the way that it operates. It lets me know that we're in a very, very critical time. So I want to encourage believers to stop playing games with prophecy. We have to know that over the years God has spoken to us. So we don't just have a right to hear the word of God. It's a privilege that we get to hear it, and it's an honor we get to hear it. And when we hear it, we need to steward it correctly. So I'm going to try and summarize my points in those perspectives.
Thank you so much for that very clear and succinct response. I'll be coming back to Prince Ekoso, and I will be asking, because there is a specific question from here. Someone, probably an Amber, say, how can a country claim to be fighting corona when lawmakers are breaking the law? I think that question basically refers to the fact that the Speaker of the National Assembly returned from France, and the very next day went into the assembly, and there are rumors that he might have been infected. We don't know for sure. But with all the noise going around, and with all the advice going around about social distancing, about testing, about quarantining people who might have been infected, he returned from France, which was at that time the epicenter of the virus in Europe. And then he went into the assembly, and we don't know what happens there. So what do you say to that? I mean, when a lawmaker, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, does not respect the law, how do you expect ordinary citizens to respect it?
Basically, you are talking to the right person with regards to some of these issues in Cameroon. Why? Because when the coronavirus outbreak became an international worry, an international issue, it will appear the government of Cameroon was taking it lightly. And I wrote on social media, because I know that they follow every of my writings, be it on Facebook, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, and other groups where I participate, and even TV programs. So I wrote and provided, I think it was about 15 suggestions on the measures that government must take in order to fight the coronavirus, as much as we have been experiencing the death across the world. So 2 days after, the government reacted, and about 95% of those suggestions I wrote were adopted. I don't know whether it was adopted through their own personal initiative or they read what I wrote, but that is not important. But when it comes to the issue of the breaking of the law, especially with regards to high personality in this country, talking about the president of the National Assembly who came from France and could not accept to be tested immediately and did not accept to be quarantined immediately was a big issue. And I continued to write and to talk on social media and on TV about his attitude. And recently, it was shown how he was tested, but another story came out that he was quarantined. But on Friday, there was supposed to be an ordinary session at the National Assembly, and we saw him coming there, and we saw medical experts trying to hold the test kits, and they were testing everybody, testing him, and it was mentioned that it was okay, that he was fine. But you know, these are some of the frustrations and the hypocrisies that Cameroonians have been decrying from this government for several years now, which is as a result of the outcome of the Anglophone crisis. It's as a result of this hypocrisy by the government. I cannot imagine that you mentioned about the state of Lagos, where a whole stadium has been transformed into a center for testing and quarantining. But in Cameroon, the government is behaving as if maybe they are still to think about a very serious solution or a serious measure to take about this crisis or about this health crisis. You see, so actually, anybody who stands up now to be able to criticize the government of Cameroon, and in passing, I want to mention that Maurice Kamto, the chairman of the CRUM political party, wrote an article yesterday and copied international organizations and said that if Mr. Biya does not react, does not address the issue, because I cannot imagine that with this level of challenge, with the kind of health challenge that the world is going through, the president of this country has not come out to be able to mention anything about the coronavirus. He's only sending ministers who, I mean, the health minister is always going out, tweeting on Twitter, writing on Facebook, giving the number of affected patients and the measures that the government is taking. They should know that the Minister of Health was not elected by Cameroonians. The person who was elected by Cameroon is Mr. Paul Biya, and he has to come out and address the issue and tell Cameroonians what are the measures that he has taken as the president of the country. You see, so it is very, very frustrating, and I understand with the person who wrote that question. And I personally, I have continually addressed issues about this country, about the coronavirus, and trying to challenge the government of Mr. Paul Biya to make reasonable solutions, or to provide reasonable solutions. There is no center that has been created. So I mentioned the other day that they could use the military at this point in time. You know, the military, we have the military hospital, and we have military officials who are experts, who are medical experts. They can use the military now to build centers where people can be quarantined in. They can use any of the stadiums. Now, people have been left to go into the quarters with some of them who have been affected, and they keep on telling us through social media that, oh, there are 99 suspected cases now in Cameroon. Tomorrow they will tell us maybe it is already 105, and then maybe on Tuesday they will tell us, I mean on Monday they will tell us that, okay, it is 125 now. You know, but we don't see any reasonable action on the ground, which means that the government of Cameroon does not even show the seriousness or the gravity of this coronavirus. So I, as an individual, I am using this medium to call on the Cameroonian government to take proper actions. If not, they should know that when the virus must have affected about maybe 1 million people in Cameroon, I wonder who are they going to be governing at that time. You see, so from every indication, the Cameroon government is so relaxed about the solution. I mentioned about a complete quarantining, complete shutdown. We have seen complete shutdown in China, and it worked. Why implement complete Cameroon? Because the government does not have interest in the people. The government has interest in maintaining itself in power, which is very, very traumatic as long as this virus is concerned.
Okay, yeah. As a Cameroonian, I do feel your frustrations, but I would want to get back to Dr. Ajoke. Doctor, I think it's a similar situation because I saw that it was someone in the Nigerian House of Assembly. I don't know if it was the Senate or the House of Reps who was actually trying to insist that the President Buhari should talk about it. I mean, it's sad that he could not even pronounce the name of the virus himself, but he had to insist, and the president did briefly address it. We've got rumors going around that President Buhari has left Nigeria. We don't know for sure because, I mean, similar to Cameroon, he's not giving updates as we see Trump doing, as we see Boris Johnson doing. Even though he's been affected, he's giving updates, calming the fears of the country. Do you think that is something that religious leaders could focus on and really speak truth to power now? Call on the government to be more responsible in this time of crisis.
Yeah, thank you. I heard everything you said apart from the last few words that you said. Can you just repeat the last words that you said?
Prince Ekoso, the last words you said, probably.
No, not him. I mean you, Kingsley.
Oh, yeah,
yes, please.
I said, you know, we've seen how leaders are reacting, but in Africa, in Nigeria and Cameroon, we have a similar situation where the leaders, the presidents, are not present. They've disappeared, and there are rumors now that Buhari has gone out of the country. It might be true, it might not be, but he's nowhere to be seen. He doesn't give daily updates. He doesn't talk about it. He had to be forced to speak about it even for the first time. Do you think it is a moment for religious leaders, I mean, to step up to act like John the Baptist who spoke to Aaron, to act like Jesus who spoke to the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the teachers of the law, to speak to these people and let them realize this is the moment that they need to act?
Yes, of course. If you go through Scripture, God's mandate and God's direction of authority. Obviously, God uses the government. The government is instituted by God. But you're going through, you see religious leaders, like you see Moses leading a whole nation. You see Samuel until the Israelites said they wanted to have a king, and then Saul was put in place. But the church has a very important role in times of crisis. The church is the governmental institution of Christ himself. That is our duty as the church. As the church, we are the bride of Christ, but we are also a governmental body. Now, in terms of your question, for nations that have got leaders that are not saying anything, I think it's always right for the church to rise up, with or without the government speaking out. The church's mandate is to bring down the kingdom of heaven to the earth. And what is the kingdom of heaven? I'm not going to preach here. What is the kingdom of heaven? We want to see glory, and that is what the church is supposed to do. So going back to your question about maybe the president of Nigeria or Cameroon or whoever is not anywhere to be found and not speaking up, the church has a role to play. The religious leaders have a role to play, and this is to speak up. And I'm hoping that we will have the platforms to actually speak and actually go to the government and let them know what God is saying, because all rulership and all leadership comes under the sovereignty of God himself. And so religious leaders, the church has a pivotal role to play. And I'm praying that all the religious leaders, the pastors, the bishops, those who have got an assignment in this season were called for such a time as this. The Esthers, the Deborahs, this is your time. The Daniels, the Josephs, this is our time to rise up. And whether the government wants to do anything or not, we have a responsibility. So let us take up our responsibility and not wait for everyone else to step up. We, the church, need to step up.
Thank you so much for that strong message. And I'm coming to you, Apostle. There's a message on the screen there from Bola Pusi, who is saying that it's a shame during election governments They share free T-shirts and other stuff so that they can be voted. Now citizens need free masks, gloves, etc. And God is watching. Now, my question to you is, do you think that this is a moment where every church in Nigeria, I mean, when I say every church, I mean every church. I was in Owerri, and on the road in Nekede, I struggled to count one day, and we had more than 200 churches on one street. Now, if every one of those churches were to decide to distribute, this is the time to give, not to ask, because I've seen some men of God asking for offering online. Do you think it's a moment where the churches should be rather giving all their members gloves, masks, the real ones, because there are fake ones out there, and giving them things to help them to protect themselves from this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I know that sometimes, obviously, with church, people propagate an imbalanced perspective sometimes. But I was on social media the other day, and I saw a particular church that wasn't just, that was just giving gloves or whatever. The senior leader himself, who is a medical doctor, and this is back in Nigeria, was out there, ministering to people. So I believe that churches are actively doing things and mobilizing in different ways. Of course, there is always more to be done. But also some of these questions are tricky because we have to also establish that it's not all churches that would have the necessary extra funds to be able to do some of the things that people want. However, to the capacity of grace that has been given to every church, definitely they should contribute. The problem with Africa, even though I believe that the church should be at the forefront of giving and leading and all of that stuff, but I feel that the desperation in Africa particularly is a lot of a failure in government. So now, what, for example, we would say things like, oh, this church hasn't built this street and hasn't built this road, and that's true. That's an example. But the fact of the matter is that in Europe, we don't look to churches to build streets. I mean, that would be great if they did. So I feel that the pressure in Africa is a lot more, and people have to be balanced. While we have to encourage the churches to be practical in their stewardship, in their giving, in their benevolence, it's also important that people understand that sometimes churches don't have everlasting funds just sitting there. They should do according to the measure of what they're doing. But also, can I say this, that the church is not just the organization and the institution. We say that the church is the people. So I am part of the church. Anyone who is watching here as a believer is a member of the church. So the church giving to the community is us individually also giving. We mustn't wait for the organization or the umbrella of the organization that we come under to mobilize efforts to supply people the things that they need. If we as individuals who are members of the body respond and we do, I've seen people sit back, sometimes criticize an organization, and they say the organization is not giving, but I'm like, you don't give yourself. So it's going to be every individual who is the church, who is a member of the body of Christ. But most definitely, churches should do more. But also, please, I'm going to say that people, before criticizing a church, you don't know what responsibilities and what other commitments that church may have to helping other people. So these things are important, and they are matters of proper administration.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Ekoso, coming to Prince Ekoso, coming to you. I mentioned doctor because there are a number of questions for her, but let me go to Prince Ekoso first. Prince Ekoso, similarly, I mean, we've got a similar situation. I mean, we've got a lot of churches coming up in Cameroon. Do you think that the church, the church in Cameroon, the Christendom, not just the church, I mean, I think we have been one-sided here. Our religious leaders, yes, because religious bodies, because we've got a lot of imams and all that, and we've got a very strong Muslim community in Cameroon. Do you think that they have been doing enough, given the failure of governments, which we all know? Could they have done more? For example, in line with the proposal of someone there, could they have built hospitals to fill in the void of where the government is failing?
Yeah, you see, let me start with the church. That is the body of Christ, which I extent, trying to the need, I believe that the church has not actually been very, very forceful in Cameroon, to the best of my knowledge. The church has been playing a lot of I don't know what kind of adjective to use, but the church has been playing a lot of coldness, with regards to addressing issues that concern the livelihood of population. I do not understand why the church cannot challenge the government in government's negligence with what is happening, especially when it comes to the church has to be able to challenge the government, to stand up to their role, challenge the government to build hospitals, because there are many government officials who are alleged to have stolen government money in billions, and we don't have hospitals. One of the greatest challenge at this point in time with regards to the coronavirus in Cameroon is that we don't have hospitals. And secondly, we don't have enough staff in those hospitals. And in those hospitals, we don't have the necessary equipment that can be able to cater for maybe even minor and ordinary illnesses. So coming to with the issue of coronavirus, it complicates the matter altogether. And so I want to challenge the body of Christ in Cameroon to really stand up and put pressure on the government and put their hands together and come up with solutions that will be able to solve the problem. Not only putting pressure on the government, but also come together. The government should be able to be challenged by the way that the church go about doing their things. And again, the other day I mentioned in a debate, in an interview that I was called in a TV station, I mentioned that this is the moment that we are hoping to see that religious bodies, be it the Muslims, the Christians, and maybe the traditional religion, should be able to come together to show some level of solidarity with the situation at hand in Cameroon. Because, we have lived in a system where some people in this country feel that they are more Cameroonians than the others. It's an opportunity now to be able to break that status quo, whereby some people, people should be able to go out there and confront the situation about this virus. And that is what I expect the church should do. The church should be able to initiate a conference or a coming together, or maybe an initiative that will be able to make suggestions or start building some tents somewhere. The religious organization should start building some tents somewhere where we can be able to have some of these affected cases being quarantined and being treated. For example, some of the Cameroonians who came from France some weeks ago were sent to go and stay in some hotels. I asked myself, I said, this is most a child strategy to how do you are suspected infected by the virus, you send them to hotels. Those hotels are private hotels, they are not government hotels. You send them there, and they went there, and the person who has the hotel refused that they cannot enter his hotel. And they were stranded in the middle of the night, and some had children of maybe 3-4 years old. In the middle of the night, they were stranded in the city of Douala. And that provoked the people to go out to some other neighborhood, and if they are infected, they will also infect others as well. This is the first. I'm only waiting for government. The church was supposed to, or the religion was supposed to stand up and do something, the government, and challenge the rest of the population. So I expect in the coming days, the church, the religious body should react. The Muslim community should react. the Christian traditional religion should react. We should not only come on TV and be talking. We should go in the field, to the field, and put and create actions on the ground that will be able to make the people to know that this matter is serious. And the other question you asked, people are having the notion that where the government just want to take money from international community, there is no, the virus does not kill a black man, or it does not affect the black man. You know, those are all mentalities that can be destroyed depending on the actions on the ground. If the church is quiet, the government is quiet, the people will be forced to believe whatever they want to believe. So, in my view and in my opinion, and I will continue to plead that those who are listening to us and those who are religious leaders in Cameroon in particular, we should come together and take actions that will create credible awareness, and that awareness will move towards solving or preventing many people from being affected, and creating a situation where we can be able to heal those or treat those who have been affected. So that is what I can say at this point in time.
Thank you so much. I'm coming to you, Dr. Ajoke. There is a question here, I've put it before, from FEFE. Says the man of God who was prophesying, I think he's talking about the apostle we listened to at the start, said the virus was not biological but a chemical weapon. That totally contradicts the views of the. Please, can you address that point? Maybe that's someone who didn't hear you explain before. So just for their benefit and those who joined us, can you again explain that briefly, because it's really important for our people to leave here with the right message.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the prophecy that you showed us very briefly at the start, I couldn't hear most of the things that he said, but one thing I would address is that, you know, the Bible says very clearly in Romans 14:4 that everyone stands before his own master, and his own master judges him. And who are you to judge another servant when his master hasn't? So I don't know what the apostle had heard in his closet, in his private time with God, but I can only speak for what I know. Okay, and the first thing that I know is that I don't engage in conspiracy theories. Either it's whatever theories are going on out there, I'm not engaging in conspiracy theories. And I think as Christians, I think Apostle TJ mentioned this earlier on, we are on the forefront, and we have to be very careful and be very balanced in the things that we say. And he also mentioned things about how we prophesy in love and all that. So in terms of the virus, what the virus is, I said it quite at the very beginning. It is a virus, and it's a real virus. And I'm not saying it was created for whatever reasons, for whatever causes. This thing is real. And my advice is that with regards to all the theories that are going on around, of whether this was hatched in this lab, or people are being tested so they can be infected, all these things that are going on around, my advice would be for us to just stick to the authentic information. You can find information on the World Health Organization. Stick to that. I know there are lots of prophecies that are going on about what God has said, but at the end of the day, we as believers and we as Christians, we need to know what we hear. We need to know what we believe. The Bible says in Philippians 4:8 that whatever things are pure, whatever things are noble, whatever things are true, whatever things are just, these are the things we should focus on. These are the things we should base our minds on. We should guard our hearts with all diligence, because from these hearts flows the issues of life. So don't get yourself locked up in conspiracy theories. People are dying. Let us do what we're supposed to do to keep ourselves safe and to keep these things from spreading.
Thank you so much. You just heard from our doctor there, and the apostle did confirm that we should listen to experts. Our other panelist, Prince Ekoso, did insist also the importance of following expert opinion. So I think I just had another comment there, which was similar, asking what's going, but it seems like it's bordering on, again, the conspiracy that people feel, because it's addressed to you, Dr. Ajoke. That's why I'm just holding you on that, so that we deal with that, saying, what is China doing differently? I mean, China seems to have numbers going down. people feel it's a conspiracy. China did this to affect the world. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's good to just maybe clarify that. I mean, I think Prince Ekoso did say what China was doing, but what's your take on that statement? I don't know if you saw that. I brought it on screen.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things as humans and humanity in general is that I personally am not one to, yes, we know we know it was first discovered in 2019 around December in Wuhan, China. But I personally am not very keen on saying this is the fault of the Chinese. I think we are humans, and where is our humanity? We as the world, we are being faced with a pandemic here. I understand, people are saying this is come from here, and now the area China is now their numbers are dropping. But we should be happy for them that their numbers are dropping. Let us rejoice with them. Let us find out what they are doing, and then we incorporate that. We're doing those things already. If people will want to listen, and if people will just drop their Googling and reading information that don't have any basis. So I think in terms of why people are saying this has come from China and all that, I think at the moment we should just focus on where we are now. What has happened in the past has happened. We celebrate with China for their numbers going down. Now let us get our own numbers dropping.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just coming to you, Apostle, and Justin says that the church is reacting. We have seen many church leaders who have donated PPE to hospitals and communities. Pastor Paul, and the church donated face masks and all. Okay, and so well, someone basically confirming that the church has been doing what you said they've been doing so far. And Apostle, I think we're almost going over our time. What would be your final word to people who have generally people who are listening today, people from the church community? What would you say can be done going forward? I mean, I would just want to give it within a context, the context of the fact that as people who originated from Africa, from Nigeria, you have people from that community who are probably listening, who watch this afterwards. What can you tell them at this moment that can calm them down a bit and put them in a direction to start really moving forward in fighting this? I'm talking to Apostle.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that question. I think we've laid the foundation, a lot of the foundation for that throughout the course of the conversation, in terms of making sure that you base whatever you do on very, very, very clear facts. I have to say that I agree with Dr. Ajoke. We've got to be very careful about conspiracy theories. Things that are not precise in information can actually kill you off. The devil will take advantage of that. But also, I want to say from a spiritual viewpoint, I want to say that believers must know, and people must know, that even though this is happening, the perfect will of God is for people to stay in health, is for their well-being. So whatever it is that may have given rise to this, people are debating: is it the devil? Is it God? Personally, what I believe, and my conviction, is that God in his sovereignty has restrained his hand so that there can be a level of alignment across the nations of the earth, so that the systems that people have built up that do not hold water can be broken, and that people can return to the source of life. So what I want to say is this, is that some of you have been saying you haven't had time for it, and I'm going to speak as a minister here. Some of you are saying you haven't had time for God, for devotion. Well, here it is. You are home. You have it. Some of you have been crying out. You want to. There's a whole lot of God. You want to work from home. You want to start some businesses and all of that stuff. Well, here is the opportunity for you to learn to steward. So what I feel is happening in this season is that there are hidden treasures in darkness, and it's going to be like that time where Israel went out of Egypt with treasures. So I want to say that it's to make the most of the opportunity. I would say that though darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness, the glory of the Lord rises upon anyone who wants to be a clear steward of that glory. But also I would say this, please cooperate. Before we go into supernatural dimensions of knowledge, we have to start from a place of humility. Okay, I understand that a lot of us have faith. I understand that a lot of us have revelation and divine healing and divine health, which we should do. But we must start from a place where we practice the things that are natural. Then we transition into the supernatural. And I believe that as we honor and give those appropriate degrees of practice, we are going to see God do so many things. So I just want to say, whether you're back in Africa, whether you're back in Europe, please stay safe. But faith, more than anything, protects you. But also make the most of the opportunity. There are systems now that have been shut down that you thought you couldn't do without. It's one of the times for those that are switched on to experience a level of productivity. And you can experience that not just on a personal devotion level, you can experience that in your business. For some of you, it's time to spend time with your family. It's time to spend time with your family. Here it is. We have it now. So it's a time of alignment. So make the most of the opportunity. Don't focus on the darkness. Focus on the treasures that are hidden in the darkness.
Okay, Prince Ekoso, I'll be coming to you too also for your final words. What do you think? I mean, you are into a lot of different things. Do you think there is an opportunity for this? For example, someone to develop an app, for example, that can help people to do marketing in Cameroon that would enforce some level of social distancing. Could there be an opportunity for people to come up with new creative ideas that can actually cut through all these difficulties, implement the advice that we are hearing from international experts within the context of Cameroon? Could there be an opportunity that God has actually given Cameroonians to now actually step in and, make use of the situation that we face ourselves? What do you say to young people out there in Cameroon who are facing this moment?
Yeah, thank you once again. The Bible says that you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. It is fundamental for us to be able to understand what is really going on around the world today. As youths, as young people, as Christians, the body of Christ, people of God, it is fundamental for us to be able to know what is really going on around our world. When we do that, then it puts us in a position to be able to find solutions, and not just solutions, but lasting solutions. So I believe that as we keep on talking about these things, we are obviously going to inspire some Cameroonians and basically Africans, to be able to find solutions to this problem. And I read something, I think maybe 2 days ago on social media. Somebody was saying that, why is it that in a situation like this one, we are always waiting for solutions to come from the West? And I agree with that statement, because since the outbreak of this virus, I have been thinking a lot. I've been thinking a lot with many different things and how we can go about it, how we can be able to reach out someone who is maybe in the Kiliwindi, how we can reach someone who is in Banso, for example, and to be able to inform the person about the danger of the virus without necessarily going there. So that's where I think that when we stop just talking, we try to find out the truth, we'll be able to find the solution. And my prayer and my concern right now is that Cameroonians, especially the young people, should put their ears on the ground. They should find out what is really happening and how they can be able to solve the problems that we're going through. I want to call the attention of every young Cameroonian who is listening to us today, that at every given time when there is a crisis, those crises are looking for solutions, and solutions come from people who think, and they think constructively. And that is why I believe right now that this program is going to go a long way. And I want to congratulate you, who is the host, and can congratulate Daily TV for this wonderful initiative, because these are all initiatives that will be able to help to find a lasting solution to the coronavirus and to many other issues that will come up. I want to say in passing that I believe strongly that this coronavirus is not sounding the end of the world. That's my conviction. And that there are other challenges that's going to come in the future. And we must actually guard our minds with a lot of knowledge and wisdom, like Dr. Ajoke mentioned, in order for God to inspire us with providing solutions to the problems. I believe that the earth is yearning for the full manifestations of the sons of God, not only in prophesying, but in scientific development and discoveries. You know, and right now as I speak to you, my company has developed an application where we can transfer money very fast and buy things in shops across the world through an app. And you have challenged me. I will talk with members of my staff, or if we can be able to develop a quick app to reach out to the issues about this crisis. You know, so thank you so very much. I'm very, very grateful to Daily TV, and thank you so much, Kingsley, for your questions. And I believe that we will be able to find solutions to this problem. I believe strongly that, especially in Africa, we will find our own solution to the coronavirus.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kosso. Dr. Ajoke, I'm coming to you last, and as I was thinking of what I was going to ask you, someone has just put something out there. I've not seen it. So said that the United Nations came out of the G20 summit, and they focus on Africa, and they are not Italy. Of course, Italy with the highest level of deaths and all that. Again, it is revolving around the issue of free vaccination campaign, and should Africa receive free vaccines? Now, in answering that question, I would be listening to your final words while asking you to also clarify to us. I've seen messages today saying, "Oh, you know, I know, of course, it's not real because I couldn't verify it anywhere." But it says, "Oh, Nigeria has discovered this medication that cures this." We heard about the case of chloroquine. We've seen people saying that, okay, if you combine, I think garlic and onion and things like that, all these things are going around, and people are ingesting them, and because there is already widespread panic and people are really looking for solutions. So what would you say to the issue of the G20 focusing on Africa instead of Egypt, instead of Italy, and of these issues of different homemade remedies that are just springing up everywhere? As a closing word, please.
Okay. So since this is my closing word, I just want to say thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to enlighten the people about the coronavirus / COVID-19. Now, in terms of, just to summarize, and there was a question you asked me earlier, and I just wanted to buttress a point that there were prophecies that had gone out about, about things that are happening at the moment. So let's just remember that, and God is still speaking, and he will continue to speak. Now, in terms of, things about the vaccines, G20, Africa, Italy, saying Africans that will have higher risks of dying and all that. The honest truth is, if you look at the infrastructure within Africa, Africa is considered, the countries in Africa are considered third world. So our healthcare facilities, just without the COVID, we are already at a disadvantage. So in terms of them wanting to pour into us, I think, and I believe it's because of the natural disadvantage that we already have in our healthcare system and in our systems anyway. Now, in terms of the vaccines, we don't know much at the moment. Things are still being researched. And even if there was a vaccine to come out today, it still wouldn't be, it would still take a few months. Now, I don't want to make any speculations about this because it's only right for you to say what you were sure about. And I just want to use this opportunity to kindly ask people, can you be the one who stops rumors? So when you get text messages, WhatsApp messages, emails that have things that are not proven, and you just like the way they look, don't forward it to the next person. Let it stop with you. Let us stop the fear. Let us stop the panic. Let us stop the conspiracy theories. Let us wait for authentic, verified information, and then we can pass these things on. Now, in terms of things like garlic and onion and lemon juice and vitamin C and all that, it's healthy, you know. Don't wait for a pandemic or an epidemic for you to live healthy, for you to exercise. These are things that you and I should do on a daily basis to keep ourselves healthy and would reduce our risks of getting infections, getting diseases, long-term problems. So in general, if you want to have your garlics, your onions, your fruits, your vegetables, please go ahead, exercise, do things right. But will that kill the virus? Will that stop the virus? My answer is no. Okay, these things would help boost your immunity, but they are not killing the virus.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that powerful closing to this. I want to thank all our guests. Dr. Ajoke Israel is Siave, Apostle TJ Regbeshola, and Prince Kosso Michael. I want to thank you so much for the time. I know you're very busy. You took off time to come and educate us today. I've learned a lot. And I'm sure our guests, our other guests, fellow guests, learned from each other. And the audience have learned tremendously from you today. I want to say thank you for this wonderful opportunity you've given us to draw from your wealth of experience. You've heard from the experts. You've heard from the religious leaders. You've heard from this the experts in different areas. They came with a lot of knowledge, and all of you have been able to learn from them. And I would want to end with one thing: don't forward false information. The experts told you there is the WHO. You can type that on Google and you always see anything new. If you are doubting, you can always ask someone. Don't forward information. Don't try remedies that you just saw on social media. I have been your host today. My name is Kingsley Shete, and I am with you here on Daily TV, hoping that we shall be seeing you again next week when we get together for another very exciting episode of Facing the Facts, only here on Daily TV. Thank you and have a great weekend. God bless you.